Hey guys, so I got a unique little situation here that not something you run into every day. So I thought I'd take you guys along on what we have going on and how I'm gonna fix it. So we have a Ford 400 here, and I'm knocking in the cam bearings. They all went in, no issues, except for number one. Went to put it in and it fell right in. So back out. First thing I did was I grabbed another box of cam bearings and tried that, thinking maybe it was a bad bearing. Not the case. So just looking at this, it doesn't look like a bearing was spun. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I can see the bore marks in here. And I don't feel any grooves, any lip, anything like that where a bearing spun in the bore. And normally we would pick that up in disassembly when we're knocking the bearings out. If one falls right out or is stuck onto the cam, it raises a red flag and it doesn't make it this far. What I suspect is at one point in time there was 10 thousandths oversized bearings available to fix the bore. Someone somewhere along the line may have bored this 10 thousandths over. Those bearings are no longer available. But let's set up a dial bore gauge and let's see if it is 10 thousandths over, and make sure that it is good and round and no taper, and that indeed it is a bored surface and not a damaged surface. So let's do that. Alright guys, spec on the bore is 2.250, so have the dial bore gauge, or the micrometer set to that so we can set up the dial bore gauge. Let me go set up the dial bore gauge and see what we got. Alright, and as suspected, we are indeed 10 over. So, what do we do? Well, those bearings are not available anymore. There's not been any out there in many years. So let's do some research and see what we can find. So after a little searching, I found on King's website, they do real good listing all the dimensions and everything for you. A Ford FE number 4 position has the same camshaft diameter with a 15 thousandths bigger housing than the number 1 400. So I have plenty of Ford FE cam bearings on the shelf. Let's go grab a set and see what it looks like. Okay, so here is Ford FE position number 4. Right off the bat, I see we only have one hole and we need 2 and a groove. But that's good. So we have, width is a hair narrower, but not enough to hurt anything. So yeah, I'll get this to where you guys can see it. So that's what we're dealing with. We have to, number one, we have to figure out how to put the groove in there, and we have to put another hole in so that, because on these motors it feeds this little hole, which feeds the thrust of the timing gear, and it also feeds the distributor bushing. That's number one. And then number 2, we have to figure out how to get the OD we have 2 options. We can turn the OD of this bearing down, which I think is the way I want to go. The other option would be to bore the cam bore here another 5 thousandths over, which is probably the better way to go. If the block wasn't already fully cleaned and prepped and all the galley plugs put in and freeze plugs and the rest of the cam bearings and all that, that's probably the way I would go. And I may have to go that way. I'm not sure. I have to think about this one a little bit to see, because you can't hold that in a 3-jaw chuck. You'll distort it. So we're gonna have to make a mandrel to hold that. I think we could do it. In worst case scenario, we mess up a cam bearing. And we're right back where we started. Let's give it a shot. Alright, so I've gone ahead and faced the back of it so that it sits in here nice and square. I can push it up against the chuck. Okay. I also turned up my feed rate a little bit. I was getting little stringy chips, so push it a little harder. And let's go ahead and face the front down. Work on getting it turned to accept the bearing. Alright, so 29/64 drill bit, and let's drill the hole. Now it's technically supposed to be 7/16 by the book, but you're also supposed to taper ream it. We're not going to do that. We also don't really care about perfect threads. We're just using it as an expander. So, alright guys, sorry my camera died. We lost a little footage. But I've got the end turned down to where we have just a nice slip fit, so we don't damage that babbitt going on. Now let's go ahead and drill and tap this for an NPT thread, and then we'll slit this to make a little expanding mandrel. Now the reason we're using NPT thread is because it's a tapered thread, so as we put the pipe thread in more and more and more, it will want to expand out, 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 and tighten up on our cam bearing to hold it in place. Alright, over at the bandsaw, we're just going to put a slit in there so that it can expand out. Nothing too critical here. Just kind of eyeball it. Okay, so I've got the burrs taken off from the bandsaw cut, and we got this pushed all the way against the shoulder just to make sure it's good and square. And then, let's see if this works. Nothing yet. I don't know why I grabbed one with Teflon tape on it. Okay, so I've switched plugs. I put a little ARP thread lube on there that helped it went in. And I just tightened it until it wouldn't spin. So hopefully that's enough. It's going to be a really, really light cut. You only need 5/1000ths off. And I've gone ahead and mic'd it to make sure that I did not impart any taper. And I've got 1/10 bigger here than here, so I'm good with 1/10. So now I'm going to put my test indicator on here, make sure that we're running true, and take the 5/1000ths off. All right, so it took a little bit of tapping around to get this thing dead nuts perfect, but there's no run out at all. And then I took and countersunk. All right, so that went well. I ended up 6/10 over the size I was going for, so I just took it over to the crank polisher and knocked off the last little bit. Starts good. Okay, let's get our other holes put in and that groove. All right, so I've got the slot marked out, and I've got it here in the bridge port. I didn't have a 1/8 inch collet, so I'm using a drill chuck. Feel free to tell me about how bad that is. I know. Anyways, that was the groove is 1/8 inch wide, exactly. So that's perfect. I just used 1/8 inch end mill and plunge down in, and then we'll do a little slot, and then we got to figure out how to do the groove to connect the two. Okay guys, sorry I didn't get that on film yet again. I dropped my GoPro and it cracked the screen, and then now it's starting to not record sometimes. Sometimes it records, sometimes it doesn't. So anyways, I didn't get that on film, but basically just cut this groove. So what I did is I found the cutter that was the right width, set this up in a rotary table on the mill, came down to the right depth that we needed, and then just spun the rotary around to connect the two holes. Everything should be good. Oh, I deburred it with a little bit of Scotch-Brite on the inside. So everything should be good. Fingers crossed. All right, guys. So everything went in good. Bearings in. Went in perfect. Nice and snug and just how it should. Just test fit a cam and it actually spins. I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. We saved the block without too much extra work. Anyways, well worth it on one of these. So, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll try to post more stuff if you like this.